If you're going to get into this market, you've got to learn how to switch off that noise and stay grounded and stick to your plan.
Sydel retired at 30 from her crypto gains. She built an 8-figure portfolio and has taught more than 20,000 people how to invest in crypto safely and systematically. She's a serial entrepreneur, a powerful voice for women in crypto, and the author of a best-selling book titled All Time High. So you are the Aussie crypto queen, and right now, Sydel, I gotta be honest, we need some clarity from you. The markets are kind of panicking, retail's panicking, trying to figure out whether they should stay or just leave entirely. So what can you say to them?
I have a playbook of things that I monitor. We're coming into summer for investable assets. So I think besides that, we're moving into an environment where we have nothing but a great foundation for crypto to thrive. Could we really go from this to such euphoria and such excitement? And I said, yes. I always say in crypto, nothing happens until it does. And really, we can see in such a short period of time, crypto go from where it is to green candles and euphoria in a space of 4 to 6 weeks.
What's up, guys? Paul here, and I'm not kidding when I say that this episode is going to change how you think about crypto forever. Now, I'm not going to give you financial advice in this video, but I will advise you to make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment if you felt like you got value. Now, without further ado, guys, let's get right into this interview. We have Sydel Sierra joining the Coin Zone here for an interview. Sydel, thank you for sitting down with us. I appreciate you on the channel. How are you today?
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, I'm going great. Yeah, excited as normal for crypto and what's happening. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. So you are the Aussie crypto queen. And right now, Sydel, I got to be honest, we need some clarity from you. The markets are kind of panicking. Retail's panicking, trying to figure out whether they should stay or just leave entirely. So what can you say to them? What's the clarity that we need from the Aussie queen right now?
I know there's a lot of mixed feelings for people. And I think by this time, given that we're in November of 2025, people at this point are expecting, 4-year cycle, we should be market top by now. What's happening? Losing faith. But I always say we have to trust the process, trust the cycles, trust the indicators, and looking at the macro, because I believe we've really moved into a bit of a different cycle this time. But nonetheless, I still am completely excited for what's around the corner, despite popular opinion.
Right. So you say trust the macros. What are some charts that you look at?
Yeah, so we're basically looking at a range of, oh gosh, we've got so many. Let me think. I always say fundamentally for people, for the beginners, I say for beginners, the Ethereum chart is one of the most underrated charts to look at in regards to what the altcoin market is going to do. So when people are worried about crypto, I say, well, what's Ethereum doing? I mean, we look at Bitcoin a lot, but Bitcoin is that reserve crypto. It's got a lot of institutional backing behind it. Ethereum is that one that sort of is that tipping point that can take us into altcoin season. So I always say, what's Ethereum doing? And have we moved past that 5,000 US mark and stayed there yet? We haven't. We've bounced back and forth. So Ethereum is one of those ones I say for any everyday investor you can go and look at, and that will show you when altcoin season is drawing closer.
So you had mentioned, Sydel, you work with people who are just getting into crypto in the beginning stages, and you're the founder of Digital Wealth Group. So as the founder of Digital Wealth Group, what are you saying to these individuals just getting into crypto for the first time? What are 3 things that you think that they need to avoid?
Well, 3 things they need to avoid is looking at the media too much, because you can one day feel great, the next day feel horrible. And YouTube and Twitter is a perfect example of how that sentiment can go from fear to greed in just such a short period of time. So I always say that if you're going to get into this market, you've got to learn how to switch off that noise and stay grounded and stick to your plan. Many people, many new investors, they come in, they buy all these cryptos, and they don't really know how to sell them or what their actual plan is for them. They think buying is the most challenging part, but I say buying crypto is the easiest part. So what is your actual exit strategy around holding these particular cryptos? And that's my second tip. And my third tip would be, when you have a portfolio, you need to be watching what those cryptos are doing. So many people just go casino. They go buy 200 cryptos or 100 cryptos with $5,000. And that is definitely not what you want to be doing. You want to hold a very small proportional amount of coins to your investment capital that you're putting into this market. So if you're buying in $5,000 worth of crypto, you want to be holding 5 to 6 cryptocurrencies, not 100 to 200. We've seen horror stories, people come in with so many different cryptos. So you've got to be mindful of that.
So you had mentioned, Sydel, you need to try to figure out how to shut off the noise and focus on the things that actually matter. So how do you do that? Can you give us some alpha, Sydel? How do you go about the day to day in crypto and focus on the right thing?
Yes. So I have a playbook of things that I monitor. So I look at particular indicators, I look at certain fundamentals. I basically look at what I know is coming. So we have major liquidity moving in next year. We're coming into, investables, summer for investable assets. So I think besides that, we're moving into an environment where we have nothing but a great foundation for crypto to thrive. So when people are saying, it's all horror and gloom out there, I say, wait to look at the actual truth. So there's a lot of, I say fact over fiction, basically. Fact over fiction. What's fact? What's fiction? Or in other words, what's hype and what's negative, fear, uncertainty, and doubt out there.
So you had mentioned liquidity coming into the space next year in 2026.
Yeah.
So one of the leading theories right now is that the Bitcoin 4-year cycle is dead, and that is a incorrect theory based off of that liquidity cycle. Is that a correct way to look at it? Do you think the 4-year cycle is a dead theory?
Well, I mean, we're sitting in November on the 18th, and so potentially yes. Although I always say in crypto, nothing happens until it does. And really, we can see in such a short period of time, crypto go from where it is to green candles and euphoria in a space of 4 to 6 weeks. In fact, one of our students actually asked us, I mean, nothing's happening right now. Could we really go from this to such euphoria and such excitement? And I said, yes, yes, we can. So nothing happens until it really does. And it's like a flip of a switch often. But the 4-year cycle, it's looking like we're moving into more of an extended cycle. The institutions are here, traditional finance is here, smart money is not emotional money. So we have a more grounded market. So we're seeing an extension, and people aren't used to that. So it's creating a lot of uncertainty in the market.
So you were able to fortunately retire from crypto by age 30. So congratulations, and love to have you on the Coins One here to share some of that, amazing knowledge with our audience here. Now, given what you just said, with everything changing, do you need to change up your approach and strategy that you did that got you all that success previously because the cycle and this space is so different now? Or do you still have the same methods and strategy that you always did?
Well, fundamentally, to be successful in this market, I always believe we have to be a contrarian, so opposite to popular opinion. And being a contrarian has been the single greatest technique that I have found to build success in this crypto market, because it means you're doing opposite to what the emotions are in the market. When there's euphoria, you are fearful. When there is fear, you are greedy. So that has been the best successful thing. And the accumulation over long periods of time. Many people go for fast multiples in this market, which is where they get trapped. But I always say go for long, slow multiples. So people go for that quick 10x or 100x pump on this meme coin with no real utility. But I say go for the slow multiples, go for the real utility in this market, because that's the infrastructure that this crypto market is building upon. And that is not something that will just go away.
So you had actually taught over 20,000 individuals so far in regards to helping them with crypto coaching, et cetera, how to invest into the markets safely and properly. Is there maybe a commonality you would say, after, seeing all those 20,000 people? Is there something that just kind of clicks that everyone seems to have, an idea about crypto, or something that you kind of see amongst just the average retail person that looks at crypto from an outside perspective?
So basically, what I see a lot of is people are completely overwhelmed when they come to crypto, and they only think that crypto is about buying Bitcoin and Ethereum. They don't know that there's all these other cryptocurrencies. They don't know that you can, earn, yield or generate an actual income from crypto. There are so many other opportunities that are evolving within the space. As my brother actually, we founded Digital Wealth Group together. He said, crypto is a fire hose to the face of financial opportunity. So I always say that's very true. But people come and say, oh, it's just buying a bit of Bitcoin, isn't it? Isn't crypto just buying a bit of Bitcoin? I say, wait and see. Just wait and see. Yeah.
A bit of Bitcoin. I know you're big into altcoins as well, and not just having that Bitcoin only approach. So, what is it about altcoins that you would say to the average person, or maybe to the Bitcoin maxi, that would get them just to look at the alternatives?
Well, I always look at a skyscraper, for example. A skyscraper is not just built with concrete slabs or with bricks, is it? There are so many things that make a skyscraper become what it is. There's the glass, there's the electricity that runs the power, there's the plumbing and the water, there's everything that makes that skyscraper operate as a building. It's not just the concrete slabs that go up on the side. So I always say that's like crypto. We don't just have Bitcoin as the only cryptocurrency to uphold the infrastructure of the entire ecosystem. We have an ecosystem that is evolving at such a rapid pace, the infrastructure, the development, and that is really what we are investing into. Altcoins is investing in true utility. It's investing in actual what's happening. It's AI, it's layer ones, it's all of that.
And speaking of that true utility that you just mentioned, it seems like the Black Rocks of the world, the likes of these individuals are starting to understand and realize the true utility there as well. We're starting to see treasury companies, the Tom Lees, the micro strategies, start to multiply. Do you think that Wall Street and institutions will just continue over the next year, couple of years, just to flood into the crypto space as they are now?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I do see them slowly moving in. But this is the silver lining. I always say to investors, don't be afraid. There's a silver lining to this if you are early, because you can see what they're going for. But institutions, they move so slowly. They're like giants. They move slowly, one big step at a time. They have so much regulatory tape around them. But for the retail investor, we're nimble. We can move quickly. We can go and get that asset that we know that they are going for. So I say the silver lining is traditional finance coming to crypto, because crypto was never meant to be, you know, third party custody, these sorts of things. So I say there is silver lining to it, but you have to be on the right side of that wave.
Yeah, and I'm curious to hear your take, Ed. You mentioned a good point, Sydel, kind of talking about how, crypto and blockchain started as something that would be an option or a rail against central banks and central governments that have a grip on everything. And now it kind of seems like we're asking those same individuals to get into this space to pump all our bags, et cetera. So do you think that's a bit of, irony or hypocrisy when it comes to the average crypto investor who's now asking for Wall Street and Larry Fink to pump their bags?
Definitely irony, but we live in the age of irony, don't we? So here we are. And I always say, this is not a short-term plan. This is a long-term plan, and institutions aren't just going to be here tomorrow. In fact, retail still hold a 50% market dominance in terms of crypto. Back in 2017, that was 70 to 80%. Back in 2021, that was about 60 to 70, and now we're sitting about 50. So when people say that we are living in an institutional market now, I say, no, we're not. We're early, and it may feel that way and seem that way, but retail still have a lot of that dominance. But yes, the irony is that along come Wall Street and and pump all the bags. Yes. Yeah.
What's one hot take that you have right now that maybe the average person, going against the grain, not a narrative that a lot of people subscribe to? Do you have any hot takes for us right now, Sydel?
As in a crypto picks, do you mean? Or
Yeah. Any kind of hot take you think that's, like you said, kind of contrary to the average person's belief?
do you mean so like a particular crypto with a good narrative behind it? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, just whatever. I mean, it could be something random that you think, people aren't even kind of missing right now in the moment.
Yep. One of those I believe is this the blockchain Bitensa, which is Tau, and it's AI. So it's artificial intelligence and crypto fusing together, but it's decentralized. So we're seeing the ChatGPTs of the world get hundreds of millions of users in such a short period of time. But now we're starting to see even TradFi, big institutions start to move into decentralized finance. And one of those, what I believe, one of those great opportunities is actually sitting in Bitensa Tau. It's building out entire ecosystems of decentralized applications called subnets, and you can invest in them as if you were investing in storage, Amazon storage when it first came out, or all of the Apples and Amazons of the world when they first came out. So it's venture capital, basically being a venture capitalist on these decentralized applications that are launching on top of Bitensa. In the same way, when Ethereum came out, everyone was launching their cryptos on top of Ethereum. This is like the Ethereum of 2025, but for AI. So all of these decentralized apps are launching on top, but you can actually invest in those apps technically. And that is, I believe, a really great undervalued opportunity right now.
100% agree. I'm really glad you brought up BitTensor and AI. So let's stay there for a little bit because I think it's going to be such a big narrative,
Yeah.
not only for this next cycle in 2026, but just for the next coming years.
Yes, definitely.
And you are right. A lot of BitTensor has a lot of attention right now. One of the guys that is a member of the All In podcast with David Sachs and Chamath Palihapitiya just went into BitTensor extensively, who, venture capitalists, so right up the alley of what you're talking about. Is there any other, projects outside of BitTensor, maybe Render or Akash Network or anything else in the AI space that you think is kind of undervalued or really going to do well in the coming years?
I haven't really looked into many other AI projects at the moment. We did talk a bit about Fetch, but they've just recently had a bit of a bit of a sort of falling apart and going through a bit of recalibration at the moment. And the space is still unfolding as to where that will go. But that was another AI sort of crypto I was looking into a fair bit. But Tau would be. I don't think anything is competing to the level of what Tau is building out right now. So I'm particularly interested in that project.
And you mentioned the subnets. I also know BitTensor has I think the same or a very similar 4-year halving schedule like Bitcoin does.
That's right.
So what is it about? Yeah, what is it? What else is it about BitTensor that kind of grabs your attention or sets it apart? You think?
I think I like the idea of the fair launch side of things. I like the idea that there can only be, don't quote me on this, between, I don't know the exact number, between 100 and I think it's either 250, I've got it written down somewhere, 250 something subnets launched at the same time and at one time, and they have to compete to basically be the best performing subnet. And then if they don't perform, they sort of drop off, but you can invest in them and those best performers will survive the test of time. So it's creating this world in which the best man wins, like a Hunger Games, but for decentralized platforms. And so therefore the best, cheapest, fastest, most decentralized, most private, most safe platforms will survive. And that to me seems fair. And that seems right for where we are moving in the future, where people are valuing privacy more and more.
Absolutely. And Sydel, you're doing my transitions for me. You just mentioned privacy. Perfect. I wanted to talk about privacy and Zcash and Dash and all that. Do you think this whole privacy thing that kind of came out of nowhere, is this like a fad, or are privacy coins gonna be here for the future? Are they here to stay?
I think they are here to stay. It's a bit like the stable coins and what's happening there. It's like these hype words that are going alongside what the institutions are looking at as well. And then people are, I think, coming off the back of a bit of fear and we need this, we need this. And so I do think everything plays a role within crypto. And again, it's all fundamental infrastructure that continues to be built upon, that is only showing to me more use cases for people to invest in, more interest outside of things like meme coins and that. So I believe it's just giving more credibility to what the crypto environment can give people in exactly the same way people like the use of stable coins for banking. It just keeps the narratives just keep evolving.
Yeah, and you mentioned the use case of stablecoins and banking. I wanted to ask about liquidity. You had mentioned, excuse me, not liquidity, but yield. You had mentioned yield before, yield opportunities. We're seeing a lot of yield opportunities open up more. Avi just announced that they have their own app coming out. Cold storage wallets have their own yield opportunities built right into their wallets now, which is interesting. How do you talk to your clients and your customers about yielding? Because it is, we've seen 3 Hours Capital, Celsius, FTX, Voyager. We've seen a lot of opportunities to engage with in DeFi go south. So do you caution people to do that, with caution, or, how does that work for you?
Yeah, we always keep members to remember that they want to have all of their crypto always within self custody. So never give your crypto away for exchange of pennies, basically, because the risk is just simply too high. Because the only thing you really do hold in your wallet then is the little bit of yield that you're making, but someone else has the majority of your crypto holdings. So I always say that you want to keep the holdings within your own wallet and then be earning yield within your wallet, or earning yield on these platforms that are decentralized, that are not centralized third-party services. So that keeps your assets safe and away from these sorts of risks that we've seen in the past. So that's always a really key component. But what I love about the ability for members to earn yield and generate that sort of passive income, some of them with larger crypto portfolios do that. But what I like is that you can keep within the ecosystem of crypto. You don't actually have to off ramp into a bank account. You can, for example, preserve your profit into something like a stable coin, be generating yield, and then connect it to a crypto credit card where you're able to spend your stable coins and everything's growing in yield. And in many ways, you're keeping up with, inflation, because if you're not keeping up with inflation, you're losing purchasing power on your money every year. So how can you actually be just keeping up with inflation through earning yield? So all of that to me they're many big green ticks. And that's what I love those platforms for.
And Michael Saylor will tell you best. You got to keep up with inflation, and that's why he buys Bitcoin. You got to have over, I think it's combined around 11% per year.
Yes.
You have to do better than that.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. Yep.
So
Crazy.
Speaking
isn't
of
it?
Michael Saylor, it is. But speaking of Michael Saylor too, how do you feel about these ETFs and these other opportunities to get into the market that way with exposure? Because you just talked about self custody and self storage. So, how do you feel about ETFs and kind of having exposure that way?
Well, I mean, in the end, people are going to go down one route, but I always say that self custody is the best. It gives you more freedom to move that asset. It keeps it more liquid. It keeps it private. You have more control over that money. So it's sitting in a wallet that you own. This is obviously if you purchase the crypto and put it in a cold storage that you own, as opposed to going through traditional finance and owning, getting exposure to crypto through these ETFs. So I would say there's a silver lining because it brings hundreds of millions of capital that were never there before, trillions of capital, in fact, over the years, and many hundreds of millions of new users. But again, what we're seeing a lot now is people actually having a mix. So we're actually seeing a lot of students come to us. They've already got half of their money allocated in ETFs for Bitcoin and Ethereum, and then they're wanting to have a part in self-custody around altcoins. So the landscape is changing.
Yeah. So how does someone how does someone break through all of the noise then if they're a beginner? Because can be complicated to, find this device to hold everything on. That's like this physical thing I can't lose. It has this phrase that's 24 words I have to remember. It can be confusing for the average person just getting in. So how do you kind of coach them to cut through all the noise?
I always say that you want to have a mentor. So having a mentor in this space, I really believe there's an opportunity cost in crypto that if we're taking too long to learn, if we're spending months and months and months piling through so many videos, there is an opportunity cost because the investment opportunity in crypto, I believe, is second to none. So having a mentor is great, even if it's a friend, a family member who's in crypto, to walk you through some of those early steps, just to give you a bit of hand holding, I really believe is a great way to start in this market.
And what are some of those opportunities you think that are better opportunities you had just mentioned in the space here? Is there anything specific that catches your attention that you focus on?
Do you mean in terms of cryptos, which cryptos to
Yeah.
hold? Yep. So I always say that diversification is key. So when people come, they want to go buy 100 cryptos because they think, well, one of them might go, do a 10,000x or something. But I always say, quality over quantity. So holding 5 or 6 cryptos, but holding half, 25% to 50% in something like Bitcoin and Ethereum will keep your risk minimal. And then the remaining 50% of that capital you're looking to put in the market, allocate that across top performing growth sectors, your artificial intelligence sector, real world asset sector, layer ones, your blockchain technology, any of those sorts of artificial intelligence. Between those sectors, you will then create a balanced portfolio where your risk is capped. And that is the best, safest way that I've seen proven, time tested over so many years work for people and gives them peace of mind. So they're not just putting everything, all their eggs in basket in some high risk allocation.
So we talked about BitTensor then with AI. We talked about privacy a little bit. Now you mentioned RWA. What are some RWA projects? Because I agree with you. I think RWA is going to be a massive narrative.
Yes.
What are some projects you think in that RWA category are you looking at?
So a great project is Ondo, ONDO. So Ondo is so interesting because they've just obviously bought out their platform where you can global Ondo. It's basically a global market for trading any commodity, stock, bonds, commodity, that anything that basically derives real world value. you can tokenize now through that platform and basically peg it to the real value that you're owning. So I love real world assets. It's completely flipping the way that we do investing, and it's allowing anyone with an internet connection and a phone to invest in assets that were normally reserved for accredited or private investors only. And over time, I believe we'll see that market open up even more. Right now, it's still quite limited and structured and quite regulated, but I think we'll see more of that open up. But it's mind blowing that you can own Apple shares and then trade it for Ethereum on a 24/7 market now. And it just keeps going. It's a rabbit hole that just goes so deep and it never ends. It's the whole market. Wall Street has now found crypto and it's never ending.
So how did you obtain all this information, Sydel, if you just mind me asking? Is it through trial and error? Is it just time in the market, just learning by, experience and failing and just learning through, like you said, mentors?
Yes. I mean, when I started, we saw a lot of people getting wrecked. So people were just getting into this market and blowing loads of cash. And it was a bit of a wild west. And we found that if you had a diversified portfolio, it worked. But then if we found that if you actually go into real utility, so actual cryptos that were really interesting, that were doing something very special in the crypto ecosystem, that were building something that you could build upon, that we knew this technology would be so needed. And that became the most obvious thing to invest into, and that system worked. So we just kept going down that path. So what cryptos represent the best utility in this project, and how do we keep investing in that? And having exposure to that over the time, and constant research, and having a team of people that research, because this space, as you know, moves so fast.
So focusing on this utility projects, do you at all focus on meme coins, or is it just strictly utility?
No, we do have an allocation of about 2 to 3% to meme coins, just because why not? They're a high performing growth sector in itself. I mean, when I say growth sector, I mean more like a social consensus sector where everyone just wants to have a go and see if something. But meme coins, you've got to have a really good exit plan. So you've got to, 4 to 5x, you're taking out initial capital, or you're taking out profit off the market. So you just have to have a good exit plan when it comes to meme coins. But we have students, all of our students have some position in meme coins because it's worth having a position, but not a huge position.
What are some of those meme coins that you're looking at or invested in?
Some of your most classics, like your Dogecoin, and a few of we always say go for the top meme coin per chain. So if you're going to pick a meme coin, what are the top performing meme coins that are most likely going to bounce back in this up and coming bull market per chain? So what's the top coin of Solana chain? What's the top one of Ethereum? What's the top one of, whatever we're looking at? So that's a safer bet, because they are really potluck, aren't they? It's a lottery system. You never know if you're going to hold that frog, dog, or cat coin that is going to go to the moon.
Yeah. Whatever animal it is next.
That's right.
Yeah. And how do you determine these projects to really hold and look out to? There's so many different things to focus on, whether it's the team behind the project building, the community behind it, the fundamentals. What do you look for specifically, Sydel?
One of the key components is the activity behind the scenes. So that's really the tribe, the crypto tribalism effect behind that particular crypto is a huge driving force. And what have they done over time? Have they stood the test of time? Have they died between cycles, or is this a first crypto to come and do a bull market? So that can often be bullish as well if it's a promising crypto that is its first run into a bull market in a top growth sector. So those combination of things will make for a good pick. Yes.
So at Digital Wealth Group, is this kind of what you explain to everybody there as well, who you're kind of coaching and teaching, is these things to look for within each project, things to stay away from? Kind of walk me through that line of what it's like working with your customers and clients at Digital Wealth Group.
Yeah, well, one of the key components we teach is that anything that comes to you is often a scam. So anything that is coming at you in this space is often a scam. So the idea is you want to go to it. So you go research the things, you go choose the cryptos, you hold the cryptos, anything that is wanting you to come to it, whether it's a trading app or trading bots or a platform where you give 1 Bitcoin and you get 2 back after a month, anything like that, even those scam emails that come through from Ledger and from Trezor, anything that is coming to you in crypto is often red alarms, red flags, and so many people get burnt. We've just heard so many horror stories over the years. But if we can have that approach where don't let crypto come to you, you go to it, you'll keep your assets a lot more secure.
So don't let crypto come to you. You go to it. So what do you tell your students then to look out for when they're going to search for a project?
Yes. So firstly, go to top growth sectors. There are so many sectors. There are millions of cryptos across all different chains. So how do you find a needle in a haystack? So the first thing to do is go for top growth sectors. So look for layer one, look for artificial intelligence, real world assets, artificial intelligence, already said that. But you go to those main sectors, and then what are the top performing cryptos within those sectors? And now you are taking a web that is so far and you're zoning it right down into a small target. And that is going to bring your success level from here up to here just by simply holding better utility. So having a much more clear focus when you're beginning is going to help new investors.
Now, how do you coach someone to avoid FOMO? Because you can very easily just start doing, like you said, just, oh, this coin has a good narrative. I see a lot of people talking about it. I'm going to put some of my allocation to it. But in 4 months, whatever, it can end up being nothing. So how do you coach people to just ignore the FOMO, continue the fundamentals, and look at the things that actually matter?
A lot of repetition, a lot of repetition of the following words: stay patient, have diamond hands. And, I say half the time it's more counseling than crypto coaching because people are emotionally invested into the assets they're holding. That's why I always say don't overinvest. If you're freaking out, if you're sleepless, if you're, messaging us every day saying, oh my God, this is happening, I say you're overinvested. Okay, so the key is to find the sweet spot. Where are you going to sit where you feel comfortable? And is this an emotional investment or a grounded investment? So if you are FOMOing into the market, 9 times out of 10, it's going to go the other way. And that's always been the same. One of my big lessons over time is anytime there's been a high emotional component to it, it's always gone not so good. Yeah.
Well, we recently definitely just had a high emotional moment in October, the biggest liquidation event in history, $19 million. During times like that, right now the retail sentiment is like non-existent. The fear and greed index is really bad. And I know for most part that's coming from retail because we still see institutions and Wall Street buying.
That's right.
So, what would you say to these individuals if someone just got in front of you or just joined, Digital Wealth Group to ask for guidance? What do you say to someone who maybe just got liquidated in October or just got really scared seeing, the events of what happened that weekend?
Always coming back to being a contrarian without being silly, of course. Like obviously we know where we are in the market. So I always say you've got to know where you are in the market cycle. So are we in like a bear market, crypto winter bottom? Are we in like a market top? So knowing where you are is more important than the cryptos that you're going to hold. But to be a contrarian, you have to have thick skin. Being a contrarian is such an easy thing to say until you're actually in it and experiencing it. Until you're watching your portfolio have an 80, 70% drawdown or a 50% drawdown on the cryptos that you're out holding. So you've got to be a contrarian. You've got to buy the fear. And people just find that hard to do. But the ones that have really invested and really taken the time to ground themselves and really understand how crypto works, the fundamentals, are taking a more calculated bet for the future because crypto has never had a better foundation to perform. It's never had a better foundation to prosper and grow. That's why we call it one of the most unprecedented bull markets to come, because there is everything shaping up and nothing is pointing to the bottom and the end. Everything is shaping up to be what we are calling this popcorn year for crypto. So that's why I always say patience and be that contrarian, but you have to have a thick skin.
So you think there is a bull market still yet to come and we are not in a bear market?
No, that's right. That's probably the most controversial statement at the moment. But
there's our spicy take.
There's our spicy take. No,
took a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. No, we have a popcorn year for crypto coming up in 2026, and we've had a delayed cycle. I've been in this market long enough. I know the games that it plays, and look at the smart money they know what's going on as well. You go deep and behind the scenes of what's really happening, and there's an exciting year coming around the corner.
So that I would say kind of confirms then that like we said, the 4-year cycle is dead. This cycle is we're just kind of waiting on that liquidity to hit the global markets to see that expected rally that we normally get. Is there anything else, any other variables that are just kind of staring everybody in the face that no one's talking about or everyone's kind of missing right now?
Uh, in terms of what, let me think.
Kind of catalysts for the bull run? Like
Uh,
maybe market structure bill, the Clarity Act in the United States. Do you think that would help kind of, set things off a bit?
Yeah, I think what the US, obviously we're like a US crypto environment really. Whatever the US is doing has a direct effect onto the crypto market. So I think, oh, there's so many of those things that are coming together. I don't have them all on the top of my mind. It's like I've got half a dozen of them that I'm looking at, but not in the top of my mind at the moment. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, altogether, uh, even the money printing that's going to be happening, like, there's so many things. Like they're not coming to me at the moment, but we can. Yeah, sorry, I didn't have that one sort of mapped out.
No, no worries. It's the Trump administration obviously is doing a lot of positive things
Yes.
for the space, but obviously it takes time. The government shut down, so we were supposed to have some ETFs possibly passed by now, and that market clarity structure bill. So I guess we'd have to do a bit of waiting. But do you think these things, the American politics and what the Trump administration is doing, has a super big effect globally, and they're kind of leading the way in that respect?
I do. And yeah, in regards to the market shutdown, I mean, that's kind of our only promising thing at the moment. If the market wakes up at the end of that, then we have something to grasp. If that doesn't happen, we're going to be waiting to early next year to see what happens with money printing and all those sorts of things. So we've got to play that patience game. But I think a lot of people are waiting on what happens over the next 2 weeks. If we don't see any price movement off the back of this, what's going on in the US, then we'll have to wait till next year. And I think that is also creating more uncertainty and despair. But I always say, anytime the market gets like this, in total despair, capitulation, people are over it. We know that this is the turning point. This has happened the last 2 cycles. It's so interesting. The conversations I'm listening to at the moment, people are all saying the same thing. People are thinking of, different ideas to get wealthy and all these sorts of things. I said, well, market's about to turn around. It's just to sit and wait now. Yeah.
So you're an author as well, Sydel. You have your book All Time High.
Yes.
Are these things that you discuss in the book?
So the book is a fireside chat. It's a conversational piece for people who are first looking into this crypto market. So if you have never entered this space, maybe you're a little bit cynical, it's a great book to give to naysayers. It opens the mind to the possibility of what crypto can do and paints a completely different picture to what a everyday person may think about cryptocurrencies as an investment class.
What other crypto or even just finance related books would you suggest, the average person to read right now if they're trying to get into the markets and understand this?
I think any of your classic Bitcoin books, a Bitcoin Standard, anything by even watching Andreas Antonopoulos, one of the earliest speakers on Bitcoin, and just the fundamentals of why it was created. But that is the foundation to which crypto was created from, and he was a fantastic speaker back in the day. So highly recommend. There's so many other authors which I can share over, but I can't think of them off the top of my head. Yeah.
And then any role models that you have in this space that you've always looked up to, or do you think does a really good job, being a representation for the space?
I think what Michael Saylor does is gutsy, and I think he's really led the way for early institutional adoption. And him alongside, your Elon Musk were probably the earliest institutional level adopters of crypto. But I think what Michael Saylor done was set the standard for what corporations can do by putting, creating treasuries with cryptocurrencies in them. And I think he's done it. The concept's proven, we can do it as well. And so we're seeing corporate treasuries hold not just Bitcoin, but also Ethereum, Solana, Tau, even things like Sui, all other different cryptocurrencies. And I think that is also paving the way for an interesting future as well.
And speaking of these treasuries that are opening up outside of Bitcoin, what do you think of Tom Lee, who's kind of becoming, I would say, in a way, the Michael Saylor of Ethereum when it comes to that treasury strategy? So what's your impression of Tom Lee?
I haven't really looked too much into him. So I've just been sort of looking at what the treasuries, what the corporations are doing and what that sort of thing. But no, I haven't really looked into much of what he's been up to. But I know all of this fundamentally just proves proof of concept of what you can do and drives that wave. And it's just a domino effect. I said, what I like to say to everyone is everything is new news. So everything's fancy and shiny and new. So institutions buying corporate treasury lists, US debt is buying this. All of this is brand new and news and shiny. But over 10 years, it's not going to be so new and shiny anymore. So that's why the wave is so early. But that's why also people think traditional finance has consumed crypto because it's so loud and in our face. But if you actually look at what's behind the scenes, it hasn't happened to the extent that people think. So it's moving slowly into crypto. It's not taken over crypto yet. So for the early investor, that is why you want to position yourself now to ride on the right side of the wave of institutions coming.
And why do you think Wall Street hasn't really taken over yet?
Because they have a lot of red tape. They have to move slow. You got pension funds, endowment funds, all these sorts of things. They have to go through a lot of red tape to get approval. They have entire boards of people discussing this, and then they have to go through approval processes. And then they have half the board saying yes, half the board saying no. And then we're now moving into a place where half the board are threatening to sue the other half if they don't adopt and take crypto in because of the way that the asset appreciates over time. So what happens if they don't get on this Bitcoin wave, which is happening? It's the new trend. TradFi and Bitcoin is the new trend. What happens if they don't get onto that trend? Then there's consequences of that as well long term. So there's all these new discussions that are happening at the moment. And it's such a fascinating space to see. And I remind people that only just a few years ago, Bitcoin was considered rat poison. It was called rat poison. Okay. People hated it. I used to say to people Bitcoin and they would say, Bit what? And Ethereum. But now we're seeing that institutions have completely accepted Bitcoin, but now we're moving into altcoins. And so the same uncertainty is around altcoins as it was Bitcoin and Ethereum so many years ago. So you can see that knowledge always takes a while to catch up with the technology, but when it does, it just becomes a new norm. So altcoins are, people are going to buy altcoins. What altcoins are they going to buy? But over time, they will just become as normal household names as something like Bitcoin and Ethereum, given that the institutions are buying so many of them.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point because Bitcoin kind of seems at this point, even by the average person, kind of grandfathered in. As in, okay,
Yes.
Bitcoin's Bitcoin, we get it, but everything else is a scam.
Yeah.
Which is still kind of people's
I know.
opinion. What would you say to these people who, everything outside of Bitcoin's a scam or everything's, a gamble? What would you say to that individual?
Oh, I still get those comments today and it just shocks me. Like it not shocks me, but it just disappoints me because I say you need to go and research. How can you say something like this is a scam? That's like saying, the internet's a scam. That's like saying email's a scam. Like it's so fundamental to the development of crypto. It's how we cannot to say it's a scam is ignorant and is often, and I don't blame them because it's probably just a consensus among their friends and family that they feel without actually diving a little bit deeper into the space. But you scratch the layers back a little bit and these people often will open their mind very quickly. As Michael Saylor said, the risk has been stripped from this asset, particularly Bitcoin. The risk has been stripped from Bitcoin. So same logic will apply to other assets over time.
Now, one of the more, I would say, tribalistic cryptocurrency communities is the XRP community. How do you feel about XRP? It's a very controversial token, but it's obviously a very high market cap. It's been around for a very long time. They've had scrutiny by the SEC for a long time. But what is, as the crypto Aussie queen, Sydel herself, how do you feel about XRP?
Well, XRP is one of those cryptos that every new investor that comes to us is always holding a bit of XRP and a bit of Bitcoin. So it's one of those altcoins that everyone feels they should have, particularly here in Australia. It's I've got Ripple in my wallet. I'm set kind of thing. So I think it's just a great entry point. It's a little bit like the meme coins. I'm sorry, Ripple people, Ripple listeners. It's a little bit like, people owning a bit of Dogecoin, bit of Bitcoin and a bit of Ripple. So it's a great safe way for people to enter. And remember, I always come back to how beginners can get exposure to this space. So if it means holding a little bit of Ripple, that tends to open the doorways to the other altcoins. So it's a great starting point. The long-term value proposition of Ripple with the way that other projects are coming in is questionable. But I say that, you know, some exposure is better than none when you're getting into this crypto market.
Well, you talked about diversification. As of right now, towards the end of the year, here in November, Bitcoin's gains for the year have basically been erased. It's below $95,000 at the time of recording. So the highest performing crypto in the top 10 right now is XRP out of all of them, which is wild. But then also, if you zoom out again, gold and silver are both doing better than Bitcoin and ETH right now.
That's right.
So, you know, Peter Schiff is probably having a great day, a great week,
Yeah.
great month, great year.
Yeah.
You know, what do you have any silvers or gold or any metals in your portfolio as well?
Yeah, most definitely. So I'm a holder of gold and silver, so have been for a very long time. Basically, since the start of my crypto investing journey, I've also been an investor in precious metals. I should think before I started investing in crypto, I was into precious metals. And one thing that's very interesting is that gold is at all-time high prices, and gold often will represent the sentiment of the global market, which is that fear. Because people invest into gold not for huge profit taking, although we're in an all-time high and we have seen some nice profit. But they go into gold because it represents stability. So it's a safe haven. So we know that in times of fear, people will be invested high in gold. So what happens is when we start to see that shift, or when we see gold investors taking profit, we know that we're going to move from that fear market into that risk on market. So right now we're in that sort of in between the fear and risk market phase where we're seeing precious metals sit at all-time highs. And very soon, I believe we'll start to see that shift from gold into more risk on assets as the sentiment shifts. So I just look at the price of gold as a great indicator to where we're sitting with Bitcoin, because 3 times previously we've seen this nice value rotation out of gold's all-time high and into Bitcoin, always representing the bottom of a particular point of the cycle, whether it's the actual bottom of a bear market or just before we go to the highest point of the bull market. And that's happening now.
And the new narrative, well, maybe not new, but I guess widely accepted narrative now, individuals as high up as Michael Saylor, Mark Cuban, Larry Fink, et cetera, are calling Bitcoin the digital version of gold. So why would it make sense still to have both in your portfolio?
Diversification, I guess. And some people, I think it's the old and new. Like it's the old school, what's safe, what's known. Then is this too good to be true? Will it still happen? Will it become what it is, Bitcoin? So people are not 100% Bitcoin, not 100% gold. So they hold both. And I think it's about diversification and holding both, because they both represent different things for different people. But a bit of both is always good. More Bitcoin.
So I think one interesting stat line, I think one interesting stat line for me is the boomers are the wealthiest generation, and they are about to pass down all that money to millennials,
Yes.
who historically buy Bitcoin over gold. So do you think at all in the future it's a possibility that the market cap of gold will shrink and Bitcoins will catch up, or do you think both will just continue to rise?
Good question. Who knows? I believe that what do the millennials invest in? What do the millennials look for? They look for more of that social aspect. Bitcoin's fun, it's enjoyable, it's shareable, it's more modern than holding a brick of gold in a safe. So I believe that the millennials will prefer digital currency over old school commodities, old school silver and gold in their safe. So I think that is probably the way that we're going to move into the future. And there's an interesting study done where 75% of crypto multimillionaires are 75% of millennial millionaires hold majority crypto, over 3/4 in their portfolio of cryptocurrencies. And those sorts of stats are really interesting, because what are they holding? And we're looking at one of the greatest wealth transfers in human history, trillions of dollars of capital coming from the baby boomers to their children. So you only got to look at where they're investing to know where the future is as well.
Yeah, I think a big part of that too can be with these pension funds, with these 401ks and
Yes.
et cetera, and all the legislations being passed now for billions of dollars in that sector to come flowing into crypto. So, how important do you think it is for? Because really, I feel like at this point, there's not a lot of cryptocurrencies that have proven their long term outside of Bitcoin. So, do you think institutions or the average person right now is having a hard time thinking about parking long term their assets into a crypto asset that might only be around for a couple of years that they might have heard things about but don't know a lot about?
Well, I think this is where, institutions are, they don't have one person dedicated to research. They have entire teams dedicated to looking at the future of particular cryptos. So when you see them make these moves, we can only assume that they're well calculated, well planned, and there is not emotional money entering. So they're not intending for short-term holding, they're intending for long-term holding. So it's interesting to see the cryptos they select for their ETF spot applications, things like that. So I always wonder, I'm of the opinion that they see the long-term value proposition of cryptos, not necessarily the way that retail would look at a crypto and wonder if it'll survive the test of time.
And do you think CBDCs are a big threat to stablecoins or to freedom? We talked about privacy coins and just DeFi in general. Do you think CBDCs kind of pose a potential risk to self sovereignty or just kind of, privacy rights?
Well, I always make the analogy that we already live in a digital age. I mean, people use PayPass, they use Apple Pay. Our currency, the way that we spend is already being monitored, is already being recorded. And we think that we're so far away from this state level monitoring of our transactions, or from this, this sort of eye looking at what we're spending. But that's actually not that far from where we are right now. The way that we spend is all very transparent. And so I believe it's a bit of a slow cooking frog, like the slow boiling frog. We are already on our way there. It's not that far different to where we are, but state level government controlling our way we spend money is a scary reality where, even things like they talk about social credits, and you cut off spending here, and then carbon emissions and all these sorts of things, and the global warming, and all of these agendas are tying in together, which is scary. But out of that will always come the privacy decentralized push, because you can't have one without the other. We can't have this drive into such centralized control without decentralized options for people. So it will create a world with two options, and those options are only going to become better the decentralized way, as we see a larger push for CBDCs, in my opinion.
And then circling back to what we were talking about before with AI, that's kind of also a national security risk in a lot of ways too, because there's a race basically to set up the infrastructure to be able to take advantage of that to the full extent. How big do you think keeping that idea decentralized? Because we saw, the previous administration tried to basically just not allow a free market to happen and give the power to a couple companies to be able to kind of run the show and do the development there. But like projects like BitTensor and decentralized and DeFi projects keep that decentralized, which to me is extremely important for humanity, for development, for innovation. Do you kind of see it that way as well?
Absolutely, yeah. Because ChatGPT, they've got into trouble for sharing a very centralized, narrow point of view of the world, for regulating or monitoring what sort of information is shared with people, and having a very strong bias opinion, telling people to get off their medication and jump off bridges and all sorts of things. They've got into a lot of trouble. So a decentralized version that is fair, that is not biased, that is not plugged into a central narrative that a small group of people want a large amount of people to be tapped into, is fair. That's a better future, in my opinion.
And then what do you think about prediction markets too? They're becoming so popular right now. Polymarket, Kalshi, people are using them as genuine sources of, information or truth as opposed to media outlets, etc. So how big do you think that space is going to be? And do you actually interact with Polymarket or any of these prediction markets?
I haven't interacted with them, but I have studied them, and I find them very interesting because, well, people are putting money behind their yes, no votes. So I find that that's why people believe in the stats more, because people are actually backing it with their real money. But what I find so interesting is we're tokenizing future events. Like we're tokenizing real world assets. We're basically making the future investable. And this is what I love about crypto. There is just no end to how much innovation can come from this space, how many new concepts can be created and tokenized through cryptocurrencies. So we're tokenizing the future, and I think it's pretty mind blowing how predictions markets are working, but even just how people are relying on them is amazing. And I think it is going to only get stronger. So it's like tokenizing real world events in instead of real world assets.
Yeah, it's also another way basically to put a long or a short on a position
Yes.
without basically going through an exchange on a perpetual or something like that. Now, staying there, we've seen Hyperliquid, we've seen perpetual platforms do really well as of late, and have a lot of attention. Why is there still to this day? I just saw there's a lot of liquidations this morning. Why does it seem like so many people are using leverage right now? Is everyone just trying to YOLO and just get rich as soon as possible? Is that what's happening here?
Yeah. I really believe that people are at this particular point in the market, people can get this sort of feeling of desperation. They just so desperately want something to work at this point in the market. They've been sitting in red. They're going through so much market volatility. Just when the candles start to go green, we get the red candles again, and it just keeps bashing down that hope. That's why people are going big on, these meme coins, the tape guys, meme coins that's just going viral, all of these sorts of things. There's so many people are going for anything at the moment, but that's not what they should be doing. They should be staying grounded, keeping their cards close to their chest in that regard, having those diamond hands and letting the fundamentals play out. Like I always say, let the market do the heavy lifting. Don't start going into areas that you're not confident in. It's like trading and all of these sorts of aspects. Don't start going into fields you're not confident in, because you will be someone's exit liquidity. Don't be someone's exit liquidity. Stay grounded and stay focused on a simple strategy. We teach people that are typically baby boomers, and they don't understand the complexities of those worlds. So that's why buy and hold fundamentals is always going to keep you a lot more secure and safe, and you're not risking your hard-earned capital.
And speaking of, everything that you're just talking about now, how do you feel about manipulation? Because a big narrative about the liquidation event in October was that there was a lot of manipulation by exchanges, possibly Binance was thrown around there. Not to make any accusations here, that's not what we're doing. But a lot of these conspiracies, quote unquote, per se, or narratives were floating around. Do you happen to subscribe to any of the beliefs that there were manipulations during that event in October?
Not particularly one or two certain narratives, but absolutely I do. I'm on the side that there was strong manipulation. I mean, you've got traditional finance here. They are wanting certain things to go certain ways to acquire their reserves. It only makes sense that we are going to be in the age of not a little bit of market manipulation, but a significant amount of market manipulation. But I always say the one thing to people, to investors, that if we can be manipulated one way, we can be manipulated the other way. Because just as much as they want that to go down, they want it to go up as well. So just wait for that pendulum to swing the other way, because it's not going to go down to the ground forever. Okay, these things are going to have their time in the sun, and as we can be manipulated one way, we can see that exact same playbook in the opposite direction.
Yeah, it's like you said, let the market do the heavy lifting.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So what other indicators do you look for? When it comes to charts, are you a technical analysis person? Is that how you kind of base your, if you have to make any positions or changes to your position or your portfolio or anything, do you look at more charts and technical analysis, or is it more like breaking news and sentiment?
Sentiment and certain indicators. We look at half a dozen of them, like the Puel. I can always never know how to pronounce that. The Puel multiples, the pi cycle indicators, more of these sorts of fundamentals, looking at certain indicators like that. Even the rainbow chart, that's such a basic one. But there's about 12 that we sort of look into, that I will tend to follow a little bit more closely as overall, but more so sentiment, price of Ethereum, fear and greed, these sorts of things, is what I will look into more.
Now, looking at that price of Ethereum you mentioned, do you think before that, the first chart you should look at is Bitcoin dominance?
Yes, sorry, I'm having it's coming back to me because I should have written out a list of all of the all of the different indicators. But so Bitcoin dominance, the DXY index, your pure multiple, the pi cycle indicator, like a combination of these together. But Bitcoin dominance, most definitely. As soon as we start to see that sharp drop in Bitcoin dominance, we tend to see the alts start to move. But until that Bitcoin dominance indicator shifts, we don't really get into that altcoin season. So we want to see it really drop below a particular point, and then we know that we're starting to move into that territory. But we need these things to hold. At the moment, we're seeing just that continuous volatility up and down, and people aren't sort of grasping on to something to give them a bit of traction and hope to move into that thrill and euphoria phase of the market. So we're still in this back and forth phase.
So just as we're wrapping up here, Sydel, at the end of the interview, anything that we didn't touch, maybe that words of advice to share with our audience at the end here?
My biggest word of advice is always that some exposure is better than none. And when people are sitting on the sideline wondering if they should jump in or not, I always say it's such an incredible opportunity, the crypto space. It's produced more millionaires than any other asset class in human history. It's produced the fastest return. Bitcoin is the best performing asset of the last decade over traditional markets. Why would you not have some skin in the game to this incredible asset? The innovation, where we're moving, the infrastructure that is being built behind the scenes, and what you see on the news is not the reality of what is happening behind the scenes. So be part of this incredible opportunity, because we don't get these sorts of investment opportunities come around a few times in our lifetime. They come around once or twice in our lifetime. And AI and crypto, blockchain technology, some of the largest shifts we've seen in our technology over my lifetime, as far as I'm concerned, with the internet as well. But we sit at this incredible window, and having some exposure, even you don't have to break the bank. You can have a few $100 in the market, or a few thousand, or 100,000. It's up to you. But having some exposure into what is happening is key.
And Sydel, where can our audience find you on social medias?
So we are on, you want to subscribe. So digitalwealthgroup.com.au, you can subscribe to our newsletter. We're sending out market updates all the time, talking about the indicators, talking about what's happening with the sentiment. So you can subscribe to our newsletter. You can find me on Instagram, Sydel Sierra. You can go to our free training. We also have a free training as well, digitalwealthgroup.com.au/free training, where I go through all of the indicators and charts and show you actually what's happening behind the scenes of this market. So plenty of ways to find us if you are wanting to get started in this market as a beginner.
Well, you heard it here first, guys. Free training. So go take advantage of that ASAP. All right. And go check out Sydel's book as well, All Time High. That's a bestseller. Go subscribe on Instagram, YouTube, etc. Like she said. Sydel, it has been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I appreciate you for coming on. Guys, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel here at the Coin Zone. And but that's about it.
Wonderful. Thanks, Paul.